So 36 years after he became probably one of the most famous criminals in the country at the time, Michael Hodgins is back in the news again. Michael Hodgins, of course, was convicted in 1990 in relation to the death of a man on Slane Castle, and it was really, really notorious and shocking at the time. But 36 years on, still hasn't fully learned his lessons and is back in the papers again.
Yeah, Michael Hodgins, he's in his 50s now, but he seems to have stayed very familiar with the court system over the years. So this week he was back in for a guilty plea to money laundering offences. So basically, Gardaí raided his home in 2020, he lives in County Louth, and found over €320,000 worth of cash. It was in various different bundles. It was hidden in 2 silver briefcases and a silver tin under a false step. And he wasn't basically able to account for where the cash came from. So he did enter a guilty plea, and there was a few kind of mitigation things put in. So he's basically trying to say that he's working as a coal man at the moment, that his partner is undergoing drug treatment and he's responsible for their 7-year-old child. So the judge agreed to adjourn sentencing until after the partner finishes treatment. So it was put back until October. Yeah. But obviously he's got a really serious criminal background.
Of course, that's a huge amount of money and will be newsworthy in itself. I mean, over €300,000 is a significant amount of criminal cash at the end of the day. But Michael Hodgins in himself, I mean, I think I've wrote about him first 20 years ago, but probably the crime that made him so famous, and it was a really big story, and it was the death of a gamekeeper at Slane Castle. And even in one of his last ever interviews, Lord Henry Mount Charles, only a few months ago, spoke again at that time about the devastating impact that death had on him and his family.
Yeah.
Lord Henry Mount Charles, I think this was just last year, he said, I'll never forget the morning that they found the gamekeeper's body, and that it's still one of the most upsetting things that him and his family ever went through.
Yeah. And like at the time, so like Lord Henry Mount Charles, obviously the owner of Slane Castle, he recently died, but he would have been a close friend of Timothy Kidman, who was the unfortunate victim. And this all happened in, as you said, nearly 36 years ago. But Michael Hodgins and another guy were charged with murder. They went on trial. The jury acquitted the other guy and found Michael Hodgins, who was then a teenager, guilty of manslaughter. So he got 12 years and he got out in 1999. So he only served about 9. But even at the time, Lord Mount Charles, when the verdicts were given down, he kind of expressed his shock at kind of that the manslaughter conviction and then the sentence, and he said that it raised important questions about the way in which homicide is dealt with by our legal system. So this was back in 1990.
So Tim Kidman was kind of a groundskeeper basically on Slane Castle estate, a very regular guy. And Michael Hodgins and his friend were poaching, really. They were, the gamekeeper, like people go on and poach. I don't know if it was fishing or animals or whatever, but they obviously had a rifle there, presumably for hunting purposes. And Timothy Kidman came on them. And he was basically gunned down in cold blood. Michael Hodgins shot him 5 times, and I think he received other bullet wounds as well. And I don't know if he died straight away, but he died at the scene anyway. So it was probably at a time when, there was less of these kind of less gun crime in Ireland beyond the subversive activities. So it was really, it was really a senseless killing that shocked the public.
Yeah, it really did. And I was actually watching RTE had archive footage of, obviously it was 1990 at the time when they were brought to court, but a long time ago. But there was archive footage of the court reporter and the guards bringing the 2 young men in, and there was a lot of people standing around because I think there was a lot of shock and outrage.
Yeah, there was a lot of local anger. It was just one of those crimes that really people, struck home to people. So Michael Hodgins went into prison and, came out, as you said, 9 years later. So sometime around the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Having served his time. But he was far from reformed because he remained of interest to Gardaí, and ultimately he was caught and served a very lengthy sentence in connection with another very serious drug seizure. And again, like proving that he hasn't necessarily learned. He was also caught with a load of money, again in a suitcase, again hidden in his home, basically.
Yeah, there's very similarities there. Yeah, so he got out, as you said, 1999, and then it was around the 2005 year. The Gardaí searched his home and they found, they said over 13,000 euro worth of cocaine, but I think that's just that charge. It could have been way more. And
I think there was amphetamines as well.
Yeah. So for the purpose of drug dealing, obviously you would have that amount of drugs and this 170,000 euro worth of cash. But again, as you said, the similarities there with the suitcases. It was a locked, coded suitcase. It was hidden under a bath, and that was discovered at the same time. So he was convicted and given a 9-year sentence for that drug dealing, and later actually had the gall to take a case against the state to try and get some of the money back, the 170,000 back, and that obviously didn't work out for him.
No, I mean, I remember that. He was saying he earned it in Nixers and building work and stuff like that. It was probably at a time where people had a bit more luck in those police property sort of hearings where, these days I don't think they have any luck at all. And he didn't have luck at the time, but people used to probably chance their arm a bit more. But he had no success. Anyway, he served, did he get a 9-year sentence, was it?
Yeah, it was a 9-year sentence. And he was actually Ken Foy, actually, your colleague in the Irish Independent, reported a good number of years ago now that he had been coming to the end of that sentence and he was in Shelton Abbey, which is an open prison, and they found a phone. He was illegally using a phone, and on the phone there was the Plenty of Fish dating site. So he was going on to dating sites in his cell using fake profiles, and then he was sent back to his high security prison as a result of that.
Back to Wheatfield. It was a kind of a big story because, what was it, 2011? I
think so, yeah.
Now, probably all the prisoners are on Plenty of Fish or whatever.
Well, it's more common now. I think 2011 was a bit of a sort of
Well, I don't think, I remember at the time when people didn't really, people probably are more accustomed to these things. But at the time, it was quite shocking,
Yeah.
But Michael Hodgins, he had a fake name he wasn't logging on as himself, but it was actually kind of a big deal, and the prison service were really kind of shocked.
Yeah.
And then he got out, and we went looking for him again, I think, after he got out of prison, and he had taken up coal deliveries, which I think he'd been involved in between his prison sentences, delivering around Drogheda and stuff like that. But there was still an interest in him from Gardaí, though I think he was openly doing the coal and putting it up on Facebook and all of that. But then again, he's back again. This seizure, it's taken a while to come to court, but it was 2020.
Yeah. It was, yeah. But he doesn't seem to have learned his lesson because, he's obviously, he'd been under the watch of Gardaí. He's obviously has serious drug convictions, and according to Gardaí, seems to have regularly been involved in that enterprise. Doesn't seem to have learned his lesson in that regard, and it was even said in court that he had to be handcuffed when he was brought to the Garda station. So he hasn't, I know originally it was said when he was sent back from the open prison to a high security prison, there were sources telling the Irish Independent that he was very upset because he'd been, clean off drugs and he'd been trying to turn his act around. And originally when he went into jail, they said that's where he started taking drugs. But he got out then and seems to have continued to deal drugs. So, he's been back again, and we'll see what sentence he gets, but I imagine it will be a custodial one. Yeah,
it will probably be a serious enough sentence given his crime history. And certainly if he does get out after that, he should think of another hiding place other than suitcases, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Is that going to be known as his signature move now? So yeah, maybe he should. But he's 54 now, so it's been a long, if you think of from the age of 19 when he was first charged with Timothy Kidman's murder and found guilty of the manslaughter, and now he's still, up to no good. So
yeah, still facing another prison term.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Eimear.
Thank you, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.